The glass clinked so hard I thought it would shatter. Connor stood up, commanding the room like he always did. Everyone turned. My stomach twisted. I knew that look. That smug, satisfied look he got right before he said something cruel. "I want to make a toast," he announced. His voice loud and clear across the reunion garden. "To family. To supporting each other. And to being honest about why some people always need that support." My skin burned. Around me, aunts and uncles exchanged glances. Connor's eyes locked on me. "You were always the mistake," he said. The words hung in the air. A few people laughed nervously like maybe it was a joke. It wasn't. "And that's not even the worst part," he added. His voice dropping lower, more sinister. Everyone leaned in. My heart pounded so hard I thought I'd collapse right there on the grass. I stood up to leave. I needed air. I needed distance. Connor blocked my path, stepping in front of me with that cruel smile still plastered across his face. "Where are you going?" he whispered, just loud enough that nearby family could hear. "I'm not done talking about you." He leaned closer. "You owe me, Kaylin. This whole family carried you. And this is how you repay us. By thinking you're better than me." No one stepped in. No uncle told him to shut up. No aunt pulled him away. Nothing. "You know what?" Connor continued, his voice low and poisonous. "If they knew what you did at work, if they knew the truth about that big promotion you think you're so proud of, they'd understand why I had to say what I said." My blood went cold. He knew something. Something about work. Something I hadn't told a soul. I pushed past him and stumbled into the hallway of our aunt's house, gasping for breath like I'd been underwater too long. My hands shook as I gripped the wall. What did he know? How did he know? I took a deep breath and steadied myself. "My name is Kaylin Harris," I whispered to the empty hallway. "I'm 31 years old. I'm a project manager at Vertex Solutions. And none of this started today. This nightmare had been brewing for months. Connor and I worked at the same company. We didn't work together directly, but we worked in the same building on the same floor. And about 6 months ago everything changed. I pulled out my phone with a trembling hand. My inbox was flooded. 43 unread emails from that morning alone. But one subject line made my stomach drop. Urgent. Project contribution audit initiated. My hand scrolled through the message even though I didn't want to see it. "Kaylin," the email from my boss started. "We've received a request for clarification on the Skybridge project submissions. Connor has indicated that he played a leadership role in the development phase. Can you confirm his involvement in your presentation?" My presentation. The Skybridge project. The biggest career milestone I'd ever achieved. I'd spent 4 months on that project. 4 months of late nights, weekends, sacrificing my personal life. Every strategy, every design element, every word in that presentation came from my brain and my keyboard. It was my baby. It was going to be my ticket to the promotion I'd been waiting for. And now Connor was claiming he'd let it. The email continued. "Please provide documentation of all contributors and their specific roles. We want to ensure accurate credit is assigned before the promotion decisions are finalized." Before the promotion decisions. That sentence made my eyes blur. They were deciding promotions next week. The Skybridge project was the deciding factor. And if Connor convinced them he'd done my work, I'd lose everything. I had to do something. But what? Monday morning. I found him at his desk on the 3rd floor. Connor looked up when I approached, and that same smug smile spread across his face. He'd been waiting for me. "Kaylin," he said, leaning back in his chair. "I was wondering when you'd come find me." Kept my voice calm. Professional. Even though inside I was screaming. "Why did you tell HR that you led the Skybridge project?" He laughed. Actually laughed. "Because I did help lead it. I saved that project actually. You were falling behind. You were drowning in details. I stepped in and made sure it didn't completely fall apart. It was all lies. Every word was a lie. Connor, I have the emails. I have the drafts. I have everything showing that I did the work." He cut me off. Do you really want to go there, Kaylin? Really? Because if you complain to HR, if you start causing problems, you're just going to prove that you can't handle pressure. You'll prove that you need me. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. And I don't think you want that. I left his desk shaking with rage and something else. Fear. Real fear. I spent that entire week collecting everything. Every email from the project initiation. Every draft I'd written. Every timestamp showing when files were created and by whom. Every meeting notes that mention my name as project lead. I printed them, organized them by date, and created a folder on my personal laptop. Connor had no idea I was building a case against him. But then on Friday afternoon, I received an email that made my blood boil. Connor had CC'd the VP on a message claiming that I'd been falling significantly behind on deliverables and that he'd stepped in to rescue the project quality. He said I was disorganized and scattered. He said I'd lacked the leadership capacity to handle such a major presentation. Every accusation was designed to make me look incompetent, and it was working. The VP had already replied with a thumbs up emoji. Thumbs up emoji. That's when I realized Connor was more calculated than I'd thought. This wasn't just a sibling rivalry. He was systematically destroying my credibility brick by brick, so that when he took credit for my work, everyone would believe him. I stayed late that night at the office, making copies of everything. Connor scheduled a meeting with both me and our boss the following Tuesday. I walked in knowing he was about to paint me as a disaster. And I was right. For 15 minutes, he talked about how unorganized I was, how I'd missed deadlines, how I'd needed guidance. He spoke with such confidence, such authority, that you'd almost believe him if you didn't know better. I said almost nothing. I let him dig his own grave. When he finished, my boss looked at me expectantly. Kaylin, any response? I shook my head calmly. Not right now. I'd like to gather my documentation first. Connor's face twitched. Just slightly. Just for half a second. He turned to my boss. She doesn't have any documentation. Trust me. This is typical of how she operates. But my boss was already asking the question I was waiting for. Connor, can you send me all documentation of the work you completed? Project files, email chains, everything. I want to review it before the promotion meeting. Connor froze. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. Of course, he finally said. I'll get you everything. But we both knew he couldn't. Because he'd never done the work. My mom called that night. I knew she'd talked to Connor because she was using his exact words. Kaylin, honey, Connor says you're feeling a little overwhelmed with work right now. Maybe letting him help you wouldn't be the worst thing. We all need help sometimes. Mom, I'm not overwhelmed. Connor is lying about his involvement in my project. There was a pause. Then, don't you think that's a bit harsh? Your brother would never lie about something like that. Yes, he absolutely would. My dad got on the phone next. Kaylin, whatever is happening at work, just handle it quietly, okay? Don't embarrass Connor. He's trying really hard to make partner, and family drama isn't going to help him. Not embarrass him. He'd lied about my work. He tried to steal my project and my promotion. And I wasn't supposed to embarrass him. Dad, he stole credit for my work. We don't know that for sure. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. Just work it out with your brother. Don't involve other people. I hung up feeling completely alone. But that loneliness made me stronger. It made me realize that I couldn't count on my family to help me. I had to do this myself. The next day, I figured out why Connor was really doing this. An internal memo got leaked during lunch. 3 promotions were coming to our department. 3 spots. One of them was supposed to be mine based on the Skybridge project's success. The other 2 were going to people everyone expected. But if Connor could convince leadership that he'd done my project, that memo would be rewritten. He'd get the promotion instead. And promotions at Vertex Solutions came with a $100,000 salary bump, stock options, and a corner office. Connor had been planning this the entire time. While I'd been working my tail off, he'd been calculating how to steal my future. That afternoon I received an email that made my stomach drop. HR was requesting a performance review meeting, for me specifically. Not Connor. Me. They wanted to discuss my project contributions and capability concerns. Capability concerns. The language Connor had planted in that email was coming back to haunt me. And now I had to go defend myself in a room full of people who'd already been poisoned against me. I didn't panic. I should have, but I didn't. Instead, I went into research mode. I organized every piece of evidence I had. Created a timeline. I made notes on every claim Connor had made and gathered proof contradicting each one. Connor thought I was crumbling. I could tell from the way he'd started texting me fake concern messages. "Hey, are you okay? You seem stressed." It was performative. He was checking to see if I was falling apart. I wasn't. That Friday, I discovered something that made my blood run ice cold. I was looking for a file on the shared company drive when I found a folder labeled Kaylin Fixes. Inside were documents, supposed mistakes I'd made, incomplete sections of work, poorly written strategies. Except I'd never written any of it. Connor had fabricated an entire folder of fake work failures and attributed them to me. He was building a case that I was incompetent. And he was doing it methodically, carefully, like a serial killer planning his next move. That's when I stopped being scared. That's when I got angry. Real cold, calculated anger. I backed up every single file to an external hard drive. I gathered building badge data that showed timestamps of who was in the office and when. According to that data, Connor wasn't even in the building during 90% of the hours when the Skybridge project's main components were created. I found proof that he'd deleted one of my draft files and replaced it with a modified version that was actually worse than what I'd originally written. The metadata showed his computer as the source of the deletion. I collected screenshots of the Kaylin Fixes folder with timestamps showing when it was created, all after he'd started claiming credit for my work. I created a spreadsheet with every single lie he'd told and the evidence contradicting it. By the time I was done, I had a case so airtight that even if Connor brought in the best lawyer in the city, he wouldn't be able to defend himself. And I did it all quietly. While Connor was texting me fake sympathy messages and pretending to be concerned about my mental health, I was building a fortress of evidence. The conference room was cold. Fluorescent lights overhead made everyone look like ghosts. My boss was there. The VP was there. Char was there. And Connor was there, sitting across from me with that confident smile. He dominated the meeting. He talked about how he'd mentored me through the Skybridge project. He described his leadership role in shaping the strategy. He painted himself as the savior of a project that was falling apart. I listened, took notes, I let him talk. When he finished his performance, the VP looked at me. "Kaylin, do you have any concerns?" I could have exploded. I could have thrown all my evidence on the table right then and there. I could have destroyed him in front of everyone. Instead, I took a breath and said calmly, "Not yet. I'd like to gather some additional documentation first. I want to make sure we have the complete picture." Connor's smile faltered for just a moment. "When can you provide that?" the VP asked. "Within a few days," I said. "I want to be thorough." Walking out of that meeting, I felt something shift inside me. I was no longer the victim. I was the predator, and Connor was the prey. He just didn't know it yet. I approached Marley from the senior analyst team a few days later. Marley had been at Vertex Solutions for 12 years. She was known for being fair, intelligent, and completely neutral in office politics. Everyone respected her. Even Connor was careful around her. We grabbed coffee in the break room, and I casually mentioned that I was working on clarifying some project contributions for the promotion review. "I wanted to ask you something," I said. "You worked on the database infrastructure for the Skybridge project, right?" "Briefly," Marley said. "Why?" I opened my laptop and showed her one single thing. An email chain from the project initiation phase where I was clearly listed as the lead, And Connor wasn't even copied on the initial strategy meetings. Marley's eyes narrowed. She didn't need me to explain anything. She was sharp enough to read between the lines. "Kaylin," she said quietly, "there's a promotion decision meeting next week. Final one. That's when they decide between you and Connor." "I know," I said. "You might want to make sure they have accurate information," she continued, "before they make that decision." Smiled. I had my ally. I didn't need her to fight my battle. I just needed her to pay attention. I filed a formal request for a project contribution audit. The next morning. The language was perfect. Professional. Non-accusatory. I explained that I wanted clarity and transparency on the Skybridge project's development phases. I stated that I wanted to ensure accurate credit assignment, and that I believed an audit would help everyone understand the full scope of work. Not once did I accuse Connor. Not once did I say he was lying. But the implication was clear. Something wasn't adding up, and an audit would reveal what. By Tuesday the audit was approved. Connor had no idea it was coming. He found out on Wednesday morning, and he stormed into my office like a hurricane. "Are you trying to ruin me?" he hissed, closing the door behind him. His face was red. His hands were shaking. This was the first time I'd seen him scared. And it felt good. "No," I said calmly, not even looking up from my desk. "I'm just seeking clarity." "Clarity? Kaylin, you know what you're doing. You're trying to make me look bad so you can keep the credit for yourself." I finally looked at him. "Then you shouldn't have anything to worry about. If you did the work, the audit will show that." The project files." He trailed off. And then, in his panic, he made a mistake. Huge mistake. "The timestamps might not be accurate," he blurted out. "Files get transferred around. Sometimes the metadata gets corrupted. You know how it is." But I'd never said anything about timestamps. And I'd never mentioned metadata. Connor had just admitted right there in my office that he knew the timestamps were a problem. And he was trying to get ahead of that problem. He'd accidentally revealed everything. The audit team worked fast. By Thursday, they discovered that Connor had accessed my project files outside of regular business hours. Multiple times. Late at night. On weekends. When they asked him about it, he claimed it was routine project work. But the audit team wasn't stupid. They were forensic investigators, essentially, trained to spot lies in digital records. They requested my original files, all of them in their native formats, with complete metadata intact. I handed them over immediately. Everything was perfect. Everything showed my work, my iterations, my progress over 4 months. Connor's versions of the files told a completely different story. The audit team discovered that one of my primary draft documents had been deleted and replaced. My original was more comprehensive, more innovative, and honestly, just better than what Connor had substituted. When they compared the two versions side by side, the difference was obvious. Mine showed strategic thinking. Connor's showed someone trying to copy work they didn't understand. The audit team called a meeting. Everyone was there. My boss, VP, Marley, Connor, me. One of the auditors pulled up the two documents on the large conference room screen. "We found a discrepancy," she announced. "Ms. Harris, can you explain the differences between these two versions of your draft?" I didn't need to explain. The work spoke for itself. "That's my original draft," I said, pointing. "And that's the version submitted to leadership." Connor tried to blame file corruption. He actually said it with a straight face. "Sometimes files get corrupted during transfer," he claimed. "It's a known issue in our system." The head of the IT department was in the room. She didn't skip a beat. "There's no evidence of file corruption," she said flatly. "The deletion was manual, not systemic. And the replacement file was uploaded from Mr. Connor's work computer." The color drained from Connor's face. Then the VP asked the question that destroyed him completely. "Mr. Connor, can you explain why your submitted draft contains none of your usual writing patterns or strategic markers?" It was a brilliant question. Every employee at Vertex Solutions had a distinctive communication style. The company's AI analysis tools could actually identify writing patterns with 80% accuracy. Connor's draft didn't match his patterns. Because he hadn't written it. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I worked with Kaylin on some of the language, he stammered. But that was a lie, and everyone in that room knew it. Marley presented her independent analysis to the room. She'd compiled project logs, progress notes, meeting minutes, work orders, and collaborative documents. Everything showed a clear progression of work originating from me, building on my ideas, with my fingerprints all over every phase. Connor's involvement was minimal. Few comments here. A database query there. Nothing that justified his claim of leadership. The evidence was overwhelming. It was devastating. It was undeniable. The VP ended the meeting early, saying they needed further review, and would reconvene with a final decision. As we stood to leave, Marley caught my eye and gave me the smallest nod. She'd done her part. Now the system would do the rest. My mother called that evening, frantic. Kaylin, Connor says you're destroying his career. He says you're making up lies about him. He says you're trying to sabotage him because you're jealous. Mom, I didn't make anything up. I just asked for clarity about who did the work. But he's devastated. He's saying you betrayed him. Closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. Mom, Connor claimed credit for my work. He tried to steal my promotion. I'm defending myself. My dad got on the phone. Kaylin, is any of this true? Is Connor lying? For the first time I didn't stay silent. Yes, Dad. He's lying. And I have proof. There was a long pause. You're sure about this? He asked quietly. Completely sure. Then you'll know soon enough, I said. You'll know very soon. The weekend felt like an eternity. I couldn't sleep. I kept checking my email every 5 minutes, refreshing the page like it would make the results appear faster. Connor had gone silent. No more text. No more fake concern messages. He was radio silent, probably pacing his apartment, knowing that the audit was closing in on him. My coworkers had started looking at me differently too, like they knew something was about to explode. Marley had given me a knowing look in the hallway. Even my boss seemed to be handling me with extra care, like she was waiting for the official announcement. The tension was suffocating, but I welcomed it. Every hour of waiting was another hour of Connor not knowing if his career would survive. I drove to Aunt Michelle's house for the family reunion that weekend, understanding everything I'd been too blind to see before. Connor's cruelty at the reunion hadn't been random. It wasn't just sibling meanness. It was preemptive. He was trying to destroy my credibility in the family's eyes before the audit results were released. He'd been planning to humiliate me in front of everyone so that when the truth came out about his lies, the family would already think I was the bad guy. It was calculated. It was evil. But he'd miscalculated. He'd acted too soon. I sat in my car in Aunt Michelle's driveway, scrolling through my emails. A notification popped up on my phone. Meeting summary posted. The promotion decision meeting had concluded. And the results had been documented. My hands shook as I clicked the link. I read the meeting summary 3 times to make sure I was reading it correctly. After thorough audit and investigation, we have determined that Ms. Kaylin Harris is the sole creator and project lead for the Skybridge project. All deliverables, strategy, and implementation were completed by Ms. Harris with significant quality and innovation. Mr. Connor Harris did not play a leadership role in this project. My eyes blurred with tears. But these weren't sad tears. These were vindication tears. The summary continued. Mr. Harris fabricated documentation, misrepresented his work contributions, and violated company policy regarding project credit attribution. These actions constitute serious misconduct. The matter will be discussed with legal counsel for potential disciplinary action. I started shaking. Not from fear. From power. Effective immediately, Ms. Kaylin Harris is approved for promotion to Senior Project Manager with a salary increase of $115,000 annually, stock options, and corner office assignment. I got the promotion. Got everything. But that wasn't the best part. The final line read, "We will be discussing Mr. Connor Harris's future employment with Vertex Solutions Legal Department on Monday, March 15th. Connor was about to lose his job. Word spread through the company like wildfire. By Monday, everyone knew. Connor had tried to steal credit for someone else's work. He'd fabricated evidence. He'd deleted and replaced files. And he'd gotten caught. He was removed from his current project immediately. His promotion eligibility was revoked. All future bonus payments were suspended pending investigation. And his employment status was under review. Connor spent that entire day in HR meetings with lawyers present. He came back to his desk white-faced and hollow-eyed. He didn't make eye contact with anyone. He barely spoke. By Wednesday, his desk was cleared out. On Thursday, the official announcement came through email. Connor had been terminated for violation of company policy regarding project misrepresentation and fraudulent documentation. He was gone. That evening, HR reached out to me privately. "Kaylin, we wanted to know if you'd like to file a formal grievance against Mr. Harris. You'd be well within your rights to pursue this through legal channels." Thought about it. I thought about the humiliation, the lies, the betrayal. Then I replied, "No, I don't need to. My work speaks for itself. That's enough." My first week as senior project manager was surreal. The corner office was bigger than my entire previous apartment. The salary deposit hit my bank account, and I actually gasped at the number. The stock options would vest over 4 years. Money that would change my entire life. But the best part was something else entirely. People started treating me differently. Not because I had power now, but because they finally understood what I'd always known. I was capable. I was brilliant. I was worthy. Marley congratulated me personally. My boss told me she'd always believed in me and was grateful the truth had come out. The VP invited me to strategic planning meetings, asking my opinion on company direction. I'd been invisible before. Now I was seen. My dad texted, "We need to talk." I didn't respond immediately. I wasn't ready to face them yet. They'd failed me when I needed them most. They'd believed Connor's lies without question. They'd told me to stay quiet and not embarrass him. That was going to take time to forgive. I finally met with my parents 2 weeks later at a coffee shop downtown. They already knew everything. The whole family knew. Connor had tried to explain himself, had claimed I'd misunderstood, had suggested I'd sabotaged him out of jealousy. No one believed him anymore. My mother had aged 5 years in 2 weeks. My dad looked defeated. "Kaylin," my mom started. "We're so sorry. We should have trusted you. We should have." I held up my hand. "I don't need an apology. Not really. What I need is boundaries." "What do you mean?" my dad asked. "I mean that I need you to respect my decisions, my career, and my choices without questioning them. I need you to believe me when I tell you something is wrong. And I need you to stop taking Connor's side just because he's louder or more charming." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "If you can do those things," I continued, "then we can rebuild our relationship. If you can't, then I'll love you from a distance. But I won't sacrifice my peace for your comfort anymore." I didn't ask about Connor. I didn't want to know what he was doing or where he'd gone or how he was surviving after losing his job. He'd made his choices, and now he was living with the consequences. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't about destroying someone else. It's about building something better for yourself. I rose from that coffee shop table a different person. Not angry anymore. Not bitter. Or strong. Just complete. I drove back to my new apartment, to my corner office, to my new life. Connor never contacted me again. And I never looked back. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is letting the truth speak, and letting the arrogant destroy themselves with their own lies. The best victory isn't in the battle. It's in rising so high that the people who doubted you become irrelevant.